Dude, the Pink
That's the
Panther
cat.
Strikes Again was, man, I watched that so many times.
You know, I will say, as
When I
a
was
child,
younger.
the most disappointing thing is there was never any Pink Panther. Because you're like, as a kid,
Yeah, right?
you were there for the Pink Panther. You're like, I didn't care about Inspector Clouseau. It's like,
like,
when
who-
are they going to have the cartoons, Dad?
Who is
Shut
this guy?
up.
Yeah. So it looks like we're on Twitch and YouTube.
Are we on
And
one
it
or
looks
two?
like we're on Facebook.
We don't even have numbers. I'm calling that one. I don't even know. Maybe that could be Voight.
What?
Or Wilson. Wait, what's the numbers?
The one with the monitor is 1.
Oh, that's one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Wilson. That's Voight. All right, got it.
Cool. All right. Address the audience.
Hey, I forgot my canteen. I better make this coffee last. And hey, everybody. Elena is not here because, San Francisco public transportation is everything you would expect of the city of San Francisco, and who knows when she'll get here. She might get here tomorrow, I think.
No, it's because you got mad after the last episode. The half nerd.
She's banned.
Yeah.
She's banned for being wrong so many times. He's like, whatever. You know what? All I can say as an older person who's had many modular power supplies, it was like, well, you're so wrong. Yeah, wait till you get that pile of power supplies and cables that don't match, and you'll be like, damn, he was right.
Speaking of that, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about whether it is safe to buy a GPU and whether it is safe to buy a CPU. So Brad and I
eternal question.
have combed the internet. We have done our analysis to figure out whether it is safe for you to go out today and buy that.
Is it just going to be a
GPU
one-word
and CPU.
answer, and it'll be a really short episode?
You know, for CPUs,
They're waiting for the T-shirt. So
yeah. Oh, and last thing is we are going to be giving away the Threadripper T-shirt, which I've been keeping it hermetically sealed in this 7-Eleven bag from Taipei. And again, I'm going to show this baby off. Check this out. It is now 10:34 Pacific Daylight Time, and this shirt you can still sign up for.
Yeah.
You go to PC World's website. Hopefully, it's still on there. You can
Actually,
sign up.
I'm dropping it in a link in the thing.
And Adam is dropping a link in there. You can still sign up to win this baby. It's a signed T-shirt, dude and dudettes, signed by Lisa Sue and Jim Anderson of AMD.
And I just
for
realized
Threadripper 2.
that's why I didn't have it end until a little bit later, is because then people can still sign up for it.
Oh, good. So yeah, if you're watching the podcast,
Smart.
if you haven't
Past
signed
Adam
up
is smart.
possibly to win this,
Yeah, right. Ruru2 says, what about the topic about is it safe to buy RAM?
Oh,
it's never going to be safe. To buy RAM.
yeah, it'll. I just, I'm just trying to think of how. Brad, you've gone through a few of these. You go through this every once in a while, you know, and
it's a cycle.
It's a cycle. It comes back, and then you'll just be like, "This is insane! I can get 64 gigs for $180," and then and then everybody will be like, "Hey, DDR5 coming
What hurts
2021."
about this one is it wasn't it wasn't proportionate. It wasn't a gradual ramp. It was like RAM is like the cost of gum, and then it's the cost of a Ferrari. Complete 180 like overnight.
Yeah, you basically want to make sure you're it's coming. Maybe that's the thing. Is just have an alert. There should be an alert. Like you want to get on before, because usually these spikes seem to last, a quarter, maybe 2. The ones that go on for a year. The hard drive shortage is bad. You talk about shortages. That was bad. Oh, well, we haven't even started
we
the show
haven't even
yet.
started. Let's,
Holy smokes, we are just talking here. Okay.
Me and Gordon were on vacation in case you guys
We
didn't know,
forgot. So hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube and Twitch.
They're all here.
We're all here.
Phil. We got many different things. We got Elvis. We got Vidnesh. We got we've got everybody. They're all here.
Oh, good. I got to find my notes. Where are my notes?
Arc Systech on Twitch says, on this episode of The Full Nerd, Gordon is wrong again.
I'm always right. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. I've learned that from a particular person.
And Dragon Kurt's here. He says they say they love the show.
Yeah, and I will, of course, be playing... What?
Thank you.
I said thank you to the guy who said he loves the show.
Yeah.
Boom.
I'm going to let you know because we haven't kicked this off yet. But I have challenged Adam our facilities person, Luis, and freelancer. His name is,
Willis.
of course, Willis. We are going to play a 1v3 match where they use controllers and I use keyboard mouse. And I what I'm afraid, though, is I do think they need a couple more people, maybe get Lane in there, maybe her cat, and then it might be fair, maybe. And I think also if I drink and maybe smoke a cigarette, I don't actually smoke.
Don't condone that.
I actually play games, then it might be fair. So, all right, we better kick this off before we lose everybody.
We should kick this off.
All right, ready?
Yes.
5-8?
Yes.
In this episode of The Full Nerd, I didn't look at had to look at my note. In this episode of The Full Nerd, is it finally safe to buy a GPU and CPU? Oh, wait, the mic is still on. I cleared my throat. Sorry.
That's fine. Whatever.
Welcome to The Full Nerd, episode 58. I'm your host, Gordon Mong, with co-host Brad Charkis.
Hello, Internet.
Also with us, but not in her chair, is Elena Yee, because she is at the mercy of San Francisco public transportation, which, by the way, in the Bay Area, public transit is the worst in the world. I mean, it's ridiculous. The BART station, all of the escalators were broken. All of them. And also, Adam Patrick Murray, who turned off the escalators, is running the show.
No, we really know what happened to Elena. You got mad at how we kept saying you were wrong last week in the Half Nerd, and you put her on a ban, right?
Yeah, that's it. I understand that Elena was trying to catch the bus, but she was using her controller. So she couldn't get on the bus because, left, up, right. I can't.
And side note,
It's slow turning.
Why? Could you imagine, like, you're in, like, a game and you're running along and you see this player kind of, like, slow turning? Like, why are you acting like a tank? We need you in this game. Like, I can't. I'm using a controller.
Side note, on YouTube, Christopher Stevens says that I did the intro better in the last episode. I did a better you than you did this week. Because
you didn't mess it up? Did you mess it up 3 times?
I messed it up. We both messed it up. That was kind of the funny part of it. Anyway.
And also Adam is a controller player.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned this earlier. I've challenged Adam, Luis from our office, who's in our facilities, and Willis, a freelance video editor, to a Gordon V3, I like to call it ass-kicking contest, where we will play a shooting game, and I will basically run around slaughtering them until they give up, realizing how bad controllers are versus keyboard. Yeah.
And then you'll install a modular power supply, or a non-modular power supply, and also what was the other thing we made fun of you for?
I
can't remember.
Until you will give up and go start like sorting out the modular power supply cables or making, I don't know, braids out of them. There's something. It just doesn't work.
Well, listen, Gordon, we have a question in the chat. We have quite a few people asking, should they buy this GPU? Should they buy that GPU?
Oh, yes.
Can you guys, Brad, can you help solve the question?
Before we dive into that, I think we forgot to mention one other part of the show.
What?
Oh, the last thing. You have, I think, approximately 45 minutes if you are listening to this live
somewhere
at the moment. Sorry if you're listening to it not live and you haven't signed up to win this extremely rare 2nd Gen Threadripper t-shirt given away at Taipei at the announcement for Threadripper 2, as everybody calls it. It is not 2nd generation, and it is actually signed by Lisa Su and Jim Anderson. This is just the most awesome nerd collectible you can think about. A Tor shirt, as I've said, signed by Van Halen.
Not Tor. It's not Tor. It's not ripped. It's a Tor.
Yes, Tor T-shirt. Yes.
Also, people are signing up as we speak. Like I said, I put the link in the chat, so do that
if you haven't done it.
If you haven't done it already.
And I think we're going to be giving away that at the end. We're going to announce that in about 45 minutes. Once
somewhere
it's over.
in there.
In the meantime, though, you're going to want to buy a GPU.
Yeah. I mean, what better thing to do to wait for the CPU shirt is to buy a GPU? What? Actually,
Or not.
Yeah, well, people are in the chat are saying, hey, prices have never been better, Brad. Is it a good time?
Prices have definitely been better before. But they're as good as they have been this year right now, that's for sure.
Go ahead, Brad.
You go ahead.
Is it awesomeness? Because I did this yesterday. I went ahead and I went to my favorite price tracker, Camel. They only do Amazon. They actually did Newegg at one point, but I guess that got pulled in. I looked at the prices of cards because it's like, and they're amazingly good, but they are certainly not the best. I mean, like everybody's favorite, the 1066 gig. Average price is about $325. Right?
Yeah, I was looking this morning on Newegg for the lowest prices for different ones, and I was the most affordable ones, aside from the rare one that's like mega deal for 24 hours is this cheap. Starts around $290 for a 6 gig 1060.
Yeah, that's it's amazing though, because we're talking about how awesome it is, but the card
we're entering month 7 of the great GPU crisis.
Well, it's over. I mean, the fever is over. The spike. Looking at all these charts, they go up and they climb for the moon, and now we're getting back to almost normal. But what did the 1066 gig come out at?
260.
Where really?
So yeah.
Wow.
Huh.
So.
Yikes.
So it's still everything. I was looking across the board. I went and I looked at every $100 plus GPU this morning on Newegg from Radeon and NVIDIA both, and they're all still selling for over the MSRP prices from these GPUs that launched 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Radeon much more so still. You still, the RX 570 is it's supposed to retail for $170, I believe, is the MSRP for the baseline model, but the cheapest one's still $240. NVIDIA prices are looking a little bit better, a little bit closer to MSRP, but they're still inflated compared to what they came out at 2+ years ago.
But so why are Radeon's pricier? What do you think is driving the higher prices of that?
I would not be surprised if people are still riding the mining train, even though it's not as explosive as it was. But a lot of people are, they use that HODL acronym, hold on and whatever. So I think a lot of people are just still in on it.
Do you think you could also speak to the supply of both Vega and Polaris parts? I mean, is it just fairly limited?
It could be. I mean, the supply chain is complicated and murky. Who knows? They've been making them. They are available. You can go buy them. They just cost a lot. You were looking at the Camel stuff and sharing it, and the Vega 64 that you popped up.
Yeah.
Remember, Vega 64 theoretically had a $500 MSRP at launch, and this one literally never came close to that in its lifetime.
Whoa.
Like from day one through now. So
it's insane.
But the good news is I always say that the best time to replace your computer hardware is when you need to. If there's a reason to, like if your graphics card won't play Battlefield 1, let's say, flat out. So you want to get a GTX 1060. Earlier this year, if you had about $250 to spend on a graphics card, you were screwed because GTX 1060s were $400. Oh. You couldn't do it. But now, even though prices are still inflated, depending on Radeon versus GeForce, you can get in the ballpark of what these things are supposed to sell for, right?
Right.
And that's a good thing if you've been waiting.
So if you had, say, a 660, that kind of vintage, is it time to I mean, those are pretty elderly parts at this point. So
yeah, that would be riding rough these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing is we're starting to see sales on them too. So if you pay attention, if you're looking for a graphics card, if you go to Newegg every day, on PC World, we try to highlight some of the better deals that we find. You can find quick sales where these cards dip back below MSRP, certain models from certain vendors, 24 hours, 48 hours. So, if you're paying attention, you can actually get a card for a reasonable price these days.
On Arc Systech on Twitch said he saw a deal for a 1066 gig for $220.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's hard to pass up. So I think a lot of people, especially after there's just been huge price spikes, you have this pent up demand. does it make sense to just rush out and get the first best deal, or does it make sense to like wait for prices to get a little better? Or because I think the fear to get in now is like you never know, like there could be some other stupid cryptocurrency thing that spikes everything back up.
Yep. Again, I think that really drives home to the heart of what I was saying, where upgrade if you need to, if you have a reason to. If you can't do what you want to do with your computer, I wouldn't necessarily wait to see if there's new graphics cards coming out from NVIDIA or Radeon anytime soon. At this point, if you can find what you need for a price you can afford, I would get it if you've been waiting out because prices have been double what they have been. Because I would be shocked if a new NVIDIA generation is in the near-term future. I would be shocked if they're not more expensive than the GTX 10 series was at launch.
Yeah, that's true, right? Because, I mean, that's the other thing. Clearly, there have been a lot of rumors of new GeForce parts coming out. God knows when it's going to actually happen. Mm-hmm. You know, I imagine some people go, I want to wait for the next thing. But, yeah, you're right. It's not going to, you're not going to get whatever replaces the 1066 gig for $220.
Yeah.
Nope.
So if you're coming from even a 960, I mean, a 960 to a 1060 is a big step up, don't you think? I mean, that's a serious,
it's huge. Yep.
Especially if you're, you know, you have a newer monitor that's higher res or something, and you're playing, you know, more AAA titles that need it.
One thing interesting I noted looking over Newegg this morning is that the lower price cards are priced higher over MSRP than the more expensive cards. So you can find a lot of GTX 1080s, which theoretically MSRP is $500.
Yeah.
You can find a bunch of those for $480 or $490. You can find a ton of GTX 1080 Ti's at MSRP. But it's when you get down to the 1060, you know, the RX 580, the GTX 1050 Ti, that you see like a $50 gap over what they should be.
Really?
It's the opposite of what it kind of started as. So.
What's a 1050 Ti go for these days?
$190, I believe I saw this morning, which isn't bad if you're looking. I mean, it's not gonna, you know, deliver all the bells and whistles on Ultra, but that's still a pretty good gaming card.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm thinking back. Man, you know, a 1050 Ti 3 months ago. It's like
$250.
Yeah, it made no sense. It made no sense.
On YouTube, CyberClue is saying they're personally waiting for the used market to flood with all these mining cards. Is that an option? What do you think about that?
It is an option. I'm always leery about buying electronics secondhand. I know a lot of people swear by it and live by it, but unless I know where it's coming from, especially if there was the potential for it to have been ridden hard,
yeah,
I'm kind of leery of it. If you're going to do that, make sure you get a good deal. If the market does become flooded with used cards and you can get one for half the price of what you would pay normally, then I mean, the risk is obviously less.
Yeah, I'd also pay
I'm personally. I don't like electronics used.
Yeah, you know, there's certain things. Yeah. I guess I'm okay with sometimes buying it used. If you get like a whole built machine, I think at least you know it worked at one point or it must be working. But I kind of wonder though, like if, and I haven't really paid too close attention to the warranties, but if some of the vendors used to let the warranties transfer to new owners. So, right. So if you can get a card from a company that does cover warranty from if it's been sold used, then that's not much of a risk, but.
I know that in the wake of the first time that the Bitcoin craze came around, so what was that, the 290 days, 290X? A lot of those awesome warranties went away because of how many cards hit the used market and got returned. So
okay, that makes sense. So don't do it. Yeah, I gotta say, I would more so buy a used CPU, rather than a used GPU, because it's nobody really has been running, a consumer CPU 24/7 at 100% with a heavy load. A lot of those used crypto cards, they are probably all used up. Like there've been plenty of stories, anecdotal of course, that they only last 3 or 4 months and then kaput, and then you're out your money. So
smart miners probably tweaked it so that it ran cooler and overclocked the memory, but a lot of people who got in on this weren't necessarily the smart first wave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were the tail riders, the ones you see the news story about where, you know, father of 7 down the street buys 8 GTX 1080s to pay his rent for a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, friend of the show, Kyle Bennett from Hard OCP, is here with us on YouTube and saying he would not buy a used GPU at this point in time unless it's somebody that he knew.
Yep.
And still want to be good friends with, because you know how it is.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, one thing I don't like to do, and good examples, I don't like to sell cars to friends or family, because you know it always happens. It's like I'm sorry the radiator went out. You know, it's like I'm not going to cover it. I sold it to you, and then you like this. Then you feel bad.
Paper, man.
Oh, hey man, yeah, it was great, but you know. You had a problem with the transmission. Oh, that's the used car. Sorry. Then you feel bad. You feel bad about that.
For used GPUs, I think it depends all on price too. Like if you can get a 1060 in a month used for $100 as opposed to $200 or whatever, you might take a flyer on that if it's cheap enough.
Yeah.
But
it has to be worth a lot.
Try to see it working before you buy it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like if you're getting new box retail card for $220 on some super great deal versus $180 for a card of questionable, past, then I would $40 for a card that has a full warranty. It's worth it. For me, I wouldn't do it for my particular needs. So, unless of course you're buying it from your friend. But
in general, I try to avoid. That got me thinking about it. For used electronics, I think I try to avoid things with moving parts, like things like CPUs, SSDs. I don't mind so much, but hard drives, graphics cards, stuff like that, I'm more leery about.
Yeah, hard drives especially, right? Because you don't know.
Just got to drop that.
I got to wonder though. So there's a lot of rumors of a huge supply of, we read some buildup of God knows how many GeForce cards piling up
for some reason.
These visions of them piled up in a factory of current cards. There were all these stories earlier. Do you think that could be driving these lower prices now, or you would expect the prices to be even lower if there was like a warehouse of 1070 cards sitting around that they just wanted to get rid of?
I think right now I wouldn't be surprised if they want to get rid of them, and that's why you're seeing some deals every now and again. But they still want to make as much money as possible. So, they're selling them at lower prices, but I wouldn't expect the floodgates to open with NVIDIA cards, especially because those haven't typically gone on sale as steeply as Radeon cards have in the past. They're kind of like Intel in that they kind of, the pricing doesn't go down too much on those.
I was just crazy because I was looking at Vega 56 and just one particular card. It came out at $1,000. It's an MSI Vega 56 Air Boost 8 gig overclockable, and now it's down to $519. I mean, that card, right?
Vega still $119 over MSRP though.
What the? I mean, I don't understand why Radeon cards are so expensive now. I just don't get it. Especially Vega, which supposedly was not everyone's first pick for cryptocurrency. So I don't get it.
Still wasn't bad.
Yeah, no, it wasn't bad, but not when you made money no matter what. But I just kind of wonder if there is more supply of GeForce and pretty tight supply of Vega still. We don't know. We're just guessing.
Yep.
What? So, would you say, okay, Brad, your expert opinion, I'm rolling 970 card. Is it time for me to upgrade?
No, 970 still does great.
Okay. So you think it wouldn't make sense to go out and buy a 1070 at this point?
I wouldn't. It depends on the resolution and again whether or not you can play the games that you want to play.
So that should be the number one.
Yeah, because that had the 3.5 gig controversy. So if you're playing at 1440p, then memory constraints might be an issue at that point if you're trying to get the high textures. If you run into that, then go get a 1070. But if you're still playing at 1080p and the games you're playing are fine, I wouldn't even step foot because 1070s are still selling for slightly over MSRP right now.
Because I just sort of think of the decision tree of a lot of people. They sort of go like, I've been riding this old card, prices are down, I just need to get aboard something new. Because the prices are down, and there's a fear that prices are going to go up again. That's usually the, True. You want to hoard, right? I mean, for God's sake, I bought two Bluetooth dongles just because they were cheap. I don't know why. Like they're going to go
I've
up
got
or
like
something?
70 USB keys here for the same reason.
I just wonder if that logic makes sense for a video card. You know, it doesn't sound like it.
Especially doesn't. That was a one generation example, 970 to 1070. I think in general you don't typically want to do that anyway.
Right.
Although the 1000 series cards from NVIDIA was a big step over 900 series. But if you have an older card, it becomes a much more interesting decision. Is it still playing the games you want to play, or should you go out and get an upgrade?
You're no fun, Brad. You are no fun.
That's why I heard you guys did the rumor episode while I was out.
I'm just saying.
My mother called me and told on you guys.
I just sometimes you don't even need when you got the money. And if you're a bad person like me and the money's just burning a hole in your pocket, you want to go out and buy it. They want your permission to go buy a new video card right now, Brad. So it's like, well, Brad said it's time to get one. So no.
Well,
you're saying wait till it's practically your current card is not serviceable, and then start to shop.
Hey, I'm a family man. I got kids. Graphics cards ain't cheap. When the things break, that's when I get a new one.
Vignesh on YouTube is asking, is the R9 Fury still good?
Oh. Wow.
I haven't formally tested it in a while personally, because I haven't done as much graphics card testing this year as usual because there has been no new graphics.
I wonder why.
But hanging out on the RAMD forums, if you look around there, a lot of people are still happy with it. They say it starts to show its age in some games and settings because of the 4 gigabytes of memory, but in general, it's still pretty good.
Wait, hold up. We have something happening here in the studio.
Yeah.
What is this? What's happening?
A wild Elena appears.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Get your Pokeballs out.
We got.
She's here.
Out?
Hi, Elena.
What bus number is it? So we can complain on the Muni website.
666.
Yeah. I'd rather not say.
Yeah. It's like, that is just like, you have an abusive relationship with your bus driver when you don't even want to narc them out. Like, you're right. You know what? That bus driver has power of life or death over you.
Oh, it's not the same bus driver.
Oh, sure. Because you could see, like, if we went and it's like...
Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. You didn't grow up in San Francisco. So this is a really standard thing for San Francisco. And everyone who grew up will know what I'm saying, where... so your first bus, the bus you're thinking you're going to catch doesn't come. And so you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And then the next 3 pass you by because everyone else was waiting and waiting and waiting alongside you. But they were smart and they managed to like walk all the way back to like the starting point or they are capable of that. So then the 4th bus comes by and you like try to squeeze yourself in there and you're like this pressed up against the glass. And then you got to tell the guy next to you like, dude, you're tripping the sensor. Like the door's not going to close and we're not going to move unless you like squish in more. So you have to, yeah, it's great.
Christopher Steven on YouTube was saying that you were actually out there signing up for the Threadripper t-shirt.
Shh.
Yeah.
Don't give it away.
No, we have to give it away. What are you talking about? We have to give it away.
No, don't give me away.
Oh, yeah. All right. I just got to say, because like I was this morning, I was like, we're just going to go to the Muni website and complain about the bus driver. But then, you're right, because what'll happen is we'll complain. And the next time you're like waiting there, and the bus driver will just drive back and look at you,
staring at you on the way.
And then you know what? The bus driver will park halfway down the block, and you'll start running up. Do not narc on your bus driver. They got too much power.
Oh man, I don't remember a time when I actually ever knew the bus drivers that did my routes. Like even if I showed up at the same time every day, it was always somebody different.
Oh really? I don't know them, but I do know.
I hate to say it, but it's Muni, dude. Everyone's always got a sick day.
Yeah, it's always. Yeah, we could talk. Well, although I could see it. So last fact, in the city of San Francisco, Muni bus drivers are allowed like 15 days to just not show up. And I don't mean like sick days or vacation. Brad, you've probably never heard this, but they actually have in their contract, I'm not going to work today. Well, okay, you're going to call and let your boss know? No.
What?
No.
That's an immediate firing any place I've ever worked.
They have the right to just simply like not show up.
It's like a union thing, I think.
Probably.
It's very strong.
And the thing is that don't get me wrong, Muni drivers have a lot of crap they have to put up with. There are people who like
literally.
Yeah. In addition to people like trying to beat them up or stab them or other things. So they got a rough job.
Yeah, see, I used to get really angry to think that is just a ridiculous thing to like. Why in the world would you have a policy where you could just like not show up for a week, 2 weeks at a time? Like, should we call the morgue? What happened to Johnson? Nothing. You just like nothing. But I realized though, because if you've ever driven in the city of San Francisco, if you drove a bus in the city of San Francisco, you would want to like, if you didn't have that, like, I'm not showing up tomorrow, you would get out. You would just start like running Priuses over. Right, you would just like, that's it, I'm going for it. You just mash an accelerator. It'd be like speed. You'd be going down Market Street, running other cars over because you would go nuts.
Be like falling
crazy
down.
here. No, we've really gone off the rails here.
Yeah, I thought I was just gonna slip in quietly, like that time that Mark and I swapped out.
How did you like? Oh yeah, the camera.
So what do you think
was
about
still on?
graphics cards, Elena?
Is it safe?
To buy a graphics card now?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I still think the prices have yet to come down.
Well, yeah.
I'm just saying.
We know that.
I'm just saying though, like the quote unquote sale prices that are being advertised are the normal prices. So that tells me that we haven't completely seen a drop back to normal yet.
Just so you know, Elena uses a special part on Newegg and Amazon, so where you can bargain. Like you could like, no, $229. No, my offer is $150.
And a chicken.
Well, how'd you get that feature? I found it. And a chicken. I don't know though. I mean, I was like, so you missed it. I was telling Brad, like, if you were running like a 6 series card,
oh, that's a little harder.
It's pretty old. But if you were like something a little closer, but if you say a 970 and you have that fear, we just went through like, it feels like 6 months of hell, right? 6 months of hell, you could not buy a graphics card.
Yeah.
And you just want to get one because you're just afraid they're going to vanish again. We're going to have another spike and you'll be like, oh, damn, I should have got that card when it was 230 or 250.
I just don't feel like we're in a spot where it's going to spike again unless you guys really think something's going to happen with cryptocurrency where everyone's going to just run out and buy them again.
I don't think it's necessarily based on rational decisions. I mean, people were paying
You're asking me though to base it off of my thinking. So.
Well, I mean, like $1,600 for 1080 Ti, that's not rational, right? That's just...
Well, I will say though that Camel does have some weird price spikes in there, so I wouldn't trust that 100% to be accurate. So, because I think one of the charts you showed me, something highest recorded amount was what, 5.2K. I was like, no way.
Yeah, you can. I didn't remove the extreme. You know what? It's weird because people will list things on Amazon that are just stupidly overpriced.
Of course.
So
because who knows? Maybe there's one sucker. Cyberclue on YouTube really wants me to ask you, Elena, would you purchase a used mined GPU for 50% below MSRP?
50% no, 25% of the original price. Yes.
Wait, 50% below MSRP?
Yeah.
So we're talking like what?
50% off.
Yeah, 50% off, but it was used for mining.
Nah. I would only take that risk if it was like 30% of the original MSRP.
See? Damn. That's like she's bargaining right now with you on the air for this card, man.
I'm just doing the risk analysis in my head, right? Because if that thing was mined hard, that means that it has a chance of failure. But if I get it dirt cheap, then I won't care that it dies early.
But 50%.
That actually lines up with what I was saying earlier, though, because we were doing a hypothetical discussions before you showed up, Elena, and I said if you can get a used 6 GB GTX 1060 for like $100, then it might be worthwhile. Which, if you think about it, that's 30-40%.
I would push it as high as one.
No, because the thing is that you have to also think about $100 if you get some good use out of it. That still kind of sucks, but all right. But once you get into 150, I think that's going to hurt.
Well, so right now, let's assume most 1066 gigs are 250, right? 250 to 280?
1066 gigs start around 290.
Yeah.
So 150, 50%, I'd take that bet. I got to tell you, I would take that bet.
Wait, Brad, that's not MSRP, though. That's market, isn't it?
That's what you'll actually pay for it.
Yeah, we're talking about MSRP.
MSRP would be below that, right?
Like
MSRP was 260.
Yeah.
Holy smokes! So you're talking $130? I would take that deal.
Not if it's used, man.
It's worth the risk, I think. I mean, I definitely would have a problem of like, I got $130. If this thing goes belly up, I'm basically stuck for 6 months with nothing. That's the different situation than like 130. To me, that's a decent roll of the dice.
Yeah,
decent risk.
A lot of people in the chat say, that they'd probably go for it.
Yeah.
To finish up the GPU stuff, because we've been running long on that, there are plenty of people saying now is not a good time to buy a video card.
Why is that?
Because the 1100 series is coming out.
The one you have in your desk?
Yeah, the one I have on my desk. I'm reviewing it right now.
Yeah,
spoiler.
It's in my phone. No, but we were talking about it earlier. So to summarize, we basically think it's not going to be cheaper. So whatever replaces the 1060 ain't going to be cheaper, right? So.
And you got to remember, the last few generations, at least, of NVIDIA launches, they've been hard to find and more expensive than MSRP for at least a few months after launch, a month or two. And I would be shocked, like I said earlier, if it's cheaper than the previous generation MSRP at launch. So I would doubt you'll be able to get your hands on one for a reasonable price anytime soon. Even if it does launch this month or next month or the month after.
Yeah. And Brad's main argument is the trigger point for any upgrade should be, can you use the hardware that you have right now? Rather than trying
is it doing what you want to do?
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Okay.
I mean, if you're happy with what your 660 or whatever it is you're running, why replace it?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if you're running a 660 and you're playing, Dota, what the hell? Why spend
World
money?
of Warships?
Throw money? World of it might be tough.
I'm sorry. Side note: we had somebody in the YouTube comments from, I think it was last week's episode, saying that they didn't realize World of Warships was a real thing. They thought you were just making it up.
Like it was a dad joke version of like a reference to World, like WoW, like actual
World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
No, it's a real. What are they called again? I think it's a MOBA. Is it? I forget.
No, it's not definitely not MOBA.
Multiple online battle arena.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I looked it up. It's a MOBA.
Perfect. All right. Do you want to talk about CPUs?
Yeah.
now?
So here's the thing. So CPUs, I got to argue that it's a little different on CPUs. So whereas the trigger point for doing an upgrade on a GPU, it really comes down to can you use it or not.
For games.
For games. I think for CPU, that is very important. It's like, if your Atom is not working, I mean Atom CPU, not Adam, the podcast producer.
I'm not working.
Atom's never working.
Yeah.
Then you want to upgrade, but I do think you never want to. It's unlike a graphics card, which is universal. I mean, you can use it.
What's up?
There was a window.
You found it?
What?
Oh, so I don't know if you missed it. For our audio listeners, there was a little pop-up that just appeared over Brad's face.
No, right over his nose. It said insert USB flash.
What? USB media detected.
Was that your end or his end?
No, it's our end.
Oh, that's funny.
It popped
Sorry,
up on the screen.
I missed it.
I thought you were fixing it.
I know.
I didn't want to say anything.
I didn't even
but
see
then
it.
Gordon stopped mid-sentence.
It's like, because it was like right here. It was like on your nose.
Okay. Sorry, everyone.
So, but a GPU is universal. It's not built around a platform. It's not built around memory. You could take, good Lord, an ancient PCIe card and use it in today's card. So it's not as sort of time to a chipset launch, especially when you look at Intel parts where you're kind of screwed. Like no one wants to be the last CPU in a socket. Generally, you don't want to be like, I just bought a 7700K, and the next week the 8700K comes out, and there's no forward path, right? That you're just kind of screwed. I think you do have to pay a lot more attention to what's coming out and whether it's safe to buy or not. I think.
I don't necessarily agree. I think, for the large part, the same general practice applies. If it's doing what you're doing, then save the money and keep doing what you're doing. Because like I had a 3570K forever,
right?
And I didn't upgrade it because I upgraded my personal system to a Ryzen. I didn't upgrade because I needed more CPU power. I wound up upgrading because of those chipset things. Because like when I was trying to transfer media off of flash drives and external storage, it took forever. But that's still it not doing what I wanted for what I wanted it to do.
Yeah, but I mean, all that is very much so. Whereas I think with graphics cards, you can sort of ignore a lot of that other stuff. You don't care about chipsets. You don't care about all the stuff. You don't care about DDR5. With CPUs, you do have to pay closer attention to it. So I think, I still run. Good Lord, I still run a Sandy Bridge G system. So it kind of sucks on a lot of things, but the chipset's serviceable.
I mean, we have we've got some people in the chat on YouTube, including many different things, says that they're still using the overclocked 2500K.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, same thing. If it works for you, and you don't have PCIe 3, it doesn't matter that much for graphics, right? You only have 2 SATA 6 ports. Thank you, Intel. Your USB 3 is just simply horrible, but it's a great part. Right, everything else around it, it's not a reason necessarily to upgrade, but if you need to upgrade for the other reasons, again, so you still definitely. I'm not saying ignore your actual needs, but I'm saying you do have to pay closer attention. So again, you don't.
Well, in the case of a chipset, for certain families, you can actually just get a slightly newer used motherboard if you want to upgrade a little bit for a chipset.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's really worth it, though.
Well, it's interesting to hear this discussion just because one of the things that I follow on Reddit is the hardware swap subreddit. And it's just fascinating to me how busy it is with activity. There are a lot of people who are still rocking like a 2500K.
Yeah.
And then they might go up to, 3500K, or they might switch out for a slightly newer motherboard. So they're upgrading, but they're kind of still staying relatively within that same sphere because it's doing enough for them, and they're just doing little baby steps because they don't want to make the full investment into that next jump, like huge jump.
So they buy a used CPU and they buy the combo. They'll buy a used motherboard.
Sometimes it's just one or the other.
Really? Wait.
Well, I would still have my 3570K if it wasn't specific for the job that I do. Because I would get USB keys with media, movies, and files and stuff on them, and to plug them in to transfer them over would take forever. So, I mean, the 3570K, all those are chips. If you're not plugging stuff in or streaming or doing fancy things, they still hold up great.
Yeah, but so yes, they do. They're great. I'm not saying you have to upgrade, but I'm saying you do have to pay closer attention, unlike GPUs.
I think that's true. I honestly feel like both of you guys are saying the same thing, but just from different angles. No, I'm serious, because Brad is saying that you don't need to upgrade unless if everything's working for you as is, and you're saying just that there are more factors to consider, and it's easier to encounter a situation where you say, man, it's a great chip, but it's not doing what I need it to do because the chipset's too old, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So, but again, so what I'm saying is like, yeah, I have a 3570K. I just got a job editing video at home. I need more cores. Then yes, that would be a reason to upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Now's actually a great time in general too, because chipsets are looking pretty good these days. NVMe's support's becoming more common. DDR4 is everywhere now. So if you haven't upgraded in a long time, now's a good time. I don't think there's going to be any imminent huge changes in the next year or two.
I'm basically trying to artificially construct something so I can show off some charts.
Oh, I see.
So, and of course, everybody keeps blocking me.
Yeah.
Wait. So I do have a question before you show that chart. Did you really mean 2008, or do you mean 2018?
No, 2008. So
interesting.
I actually did homework. Nobody ever does it. I never do homework.
Show your math.
I actually went out and I looked at, well, let's look at all Intel major desktop processor launches since 2008 and when they come out. Do we have the one by quarter, or you can also do by month?
Yeah, I've got either. What do you want?
Why don't we do by quarter, because less granular probably makes a lot more sense.
All right, 1 second.
So I basically lumped in all of the major Intel launches, although I did kind of double up for Skylake X. But that's only one chip. These are all the major, desktop processor launches for Intel since 2008. So over 10 years. And there we go. So what you're seeing basically in Q1, over the last 10 years, Intel launched 4 CPUs. Q2, 10 CPUs. So clearly, middle of the year is where Intel has historically liked to launch chips. And then Q3 was 5, and then Q4 is 4. So, and I think this probably indicates that, yeah, we're not going to, there's a lot of thought that there's going to be some new parts. There might be, but I think generally they like to launch in June. So we've already
probably
sort of missed
for back to school.
Yeah. But, I do think right now, and in AMD, they tend to also like to launch CPUs early part of the year, April. So Ryzen 1, Ryzen 2, both came out in April. Threadripper came out last September, and it looks like Q4 for the new one, maybe. And as well,
I said Q3.
Is it Q3? So Q3, yeah, Q3 for Threadripper 2nd Gen. And then Intel has said Q4 for high-end HEDT, the 28-core part mystery thing. So, I definitely think for desktop, for 6-core and lower, it's probably okay for both of them.
Even 8-core, I would say. Right now to buy, you mean?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, I would say even like the 2700X or whatever right now. Or are you worried about that rumored Intel 8-core chip?
Well, I think for AMD, I think that we've seen all the AMD desktop parts for the year probably. So I think it's safe to buy a 2700X, the 2 series. But I do think for high-end, HEDT is like people like to call it these days, high-end desktop. I wouldn't buy right now. So it's safe to buy for desktop, right? For the most part, except there may be rumors of a new Intel part. Who knows? But I do think for a Threadripper, for whatever the heck this new chip Intel 28-core part is, I wouldn't buy them because who knows how that's going to influence prices on those high-end parts. That's the main reason.
I completely agree. I think standard consumers, people at home, gamers, cards are on the table right now. I mean, even the Intel, like the 8700K launched last fall, but all the mainstream motherboards only launched, a couple months ago. So I don't think they're going to be refreshing Coffee Lake anytime soon. I think for a consumer, all the cards are pretty much on the table for the year. And now if you're looking at a potential upgrade, now is a great time to buy.
Yeah, I mean, because that's definitely something different from GPU is that, when we're talking about CPU, we're also talking about the chipset, the boards.
Right. It's everything.
Everything around that, so...
Although, that what's interesting is I think sort of with GPUs, we sort of expect prices to always get better. They haven't this last cycle. But I will say historically for CPUs, of course, it's been an Intel world. It hasn't historically been an AMD world. Prices for Intel CPUs never get better. They sort of come out very high because there's very limited supply. And then, it takes a couple months for them to settle down. And then they just sort of sit there forever. I was looking at one chart. It just goes on for like 2 years at the same price on Amazon.
Like the desert horizon.
They stick to their prices because I remember even back when AMD had their first real strong showing about, 12 years ago? 15 years ago? Can't remember now. Intel prices just kind of stuck where they were, even though, they weren't doing so great relative to the Athlon parts.
Yeah.
I went with Athlon because the prices were better.
Yeah. But like even looking at I looked up a Core i7 7700K, basically came out at about $350 on January 4th. I think probably whatever. The numbers for it came out at $350 and basically at the end, even today, it's only about $314. So
that's actually a little lower than I would expect it to be at general street price without any sales,
right? Than
it has historically, because before it used to stick around like $330.
Yeah, $330 actually used to be the price that they used to pick, but they sort of bumped up with newer chips.
I wouldn't be surprised if the 7700K is a unique situation because it was dropping price to compete against all the Ryzen multi-core chips.
Yeah, a little bit.
And now the 6-core Coffee Lake chips.
It's also the very last CPU the highest end CPU you could slot into a Z170 board, right? So that whole Z170, Z270 really kind of screwed everybody.
You pulled up the 6700K too, and that was just a flat line. And still
it's insane.
350 or whatever.
It's actually, and this is the weird thing, because you look at the price of a 6700K, it's $314 today, or $334 for this one chip that I was tracking. Yeah, that's more than a 7700K, which I got to say is a little weird.
Is it this one, the 6700?
Yeah, look at that. What's up with this? It basically it has not changed price in it feels like 2 years. So
it hasn't.
Well, I think that's a little weird about that. It's like, who would buy that? Because if you're putting it into Z170, hell, why not just get a 7700K? Why would you get a 6700K at this point? So
I don't know. Higher
clocks from KB Lake, and to me it doesn't make any sense. But I did notice one thing that I do like this. Do you have the 4770K chart?
That's an insane chart.
1 second.
And I just want to because
no, you only gave me 8,700 and 2,700.
Yeah, you should totally see this.
You got to see the chart. I'm going to give this to Adam.
Crazy.
This is the best radio here. Send
best
charts.
We
over
are
Slack.
Over chart. So we are basically. What I'm doing is I'm handing Adam this chart, and I looked at like, okay, what happens to older? What? Yeah, this is what you get for saying I was wrong. More charts.
Ah, no.
So
I'll never do it again.
4770K, right? So we're talking about 4th gen Haswell. They love that CPU. And I have seen this historically going way back to the Pentium 4, the Pentium 3 days, where you see the prices of new Intel box chips, they go up. So basically this chart, so that blue line shows, because what happened is at a certain point, you could no longer get Haswell parts on Amazon. So you couldn't get them from Amazon. It basically clocked out at $360. So you couldn't buy them. But the used, you could buy them, not used, but you could buy them brand new. Basically sitting on somebody's shelf. $440 for a Haswell part. At the end.
If you need it, you're going to pay it.
Yeah, you bet. In the blue line, so the blue line basically shows $440 for a Haswell part.
What's that red line?
Yeah, the red line is used, because I was like, well, used, right? Because who the hell? Okay, then there's a compelling reason to buy it used, but even that is just kind of still sucky. Used Haswell on Amazon was like $210.
Wow.
So, there are people who do not want to buy used parts, right? They're not comfortable with rolling dice on a $200 deal, right? So, but look, if you're stuck with an older motherboard, you got nothing else to do. But who's going to buy a $440 CPU for that? I just don't get it.
It'd still be, if you're happy with it, it would still probably be cheaper than buying a new motherboard, the Z series motherboard and RAM. Yeah, because RAM's no joke these days.
Yeah. So I just kind of
I'll pay $440 and save $200 over upgrading my whole system.
You definitely because it'd be $200 in RAM, $150 on the motherboard, $125, and then plus the CPU. That is a major price. What does it really get you? So it's interesting. So I do think, but my general guidance is, if there are no major launches, I think it's probably okay to buy a CPU. But still, again, as Brad and I and Elaine have said, and Adam, it should be used. If you have a 2700K and it's working great, why upgrade it, right? So
very true.
But I think it'd be fine to personally buy a part right now if you had to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you had to. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to.
Yeah, kind of. If you have to, you have to.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it breaks, and sometimes you're like, oh, I really would like an M.2 NVMe drive. You're not going to get that in your crappy old Sandy Bridge. Oh, and also, also like security too. Then there's also some security issues.
Well, and my my stock cooler doesn't have RGB. I mean, what am I doing?
You could just buy one with RGB.
No. I guess I could.
Although speaking of Sandy Bridge and the Spectre meltdown patches, if you're lucky enough to have an Intel board, you might be covered.
No. Not lucky enough to have an Intel board. You have to have the Intel board. Because I went and looked around. They did not update for other boards.
Really?
Not all of them.
Wow,
even
I really
high end
did hit the jackpot.
Well, you happen to basically have a motherboard. My theory is you have a motherboard being used by an agency of the U.S. government.
I know.
That says you are going to give us this update, or we'll never buy any of your stuff.
I'm just saying. I got lucky. I didn't know that.
No, but if you look at like sort of the enthusiast, and Intel did make enthusiast-focused chipsets for those Sandy Bridge parts. They didn't get Spectre meltdown fixes.
Sometimes going cheap works out.
Yeah, you basically have a boring commercial board. So.
That also has FireWire support, I believe. That's the reason I got it.
Really?
Yeah.
And security patches.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I want to see, are we
Two
there?
most important things.
Oh, hey.
Yes, the giveaway has ended.
Oh.
Should we move on to announcing the winner?
Let's announce the winner here.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for entering for this awesome giveaway. And before I announce a winner, I will say that we have some awesome giveaways kind of tucked away in our coat pocket that we will be running in the future too. So this is just one of many.
Yep.
One of many.
Next one should be pretty cool too.
Yeah. So
I'm jealous. I wouldn't mind I know some of the stuff we're giving away, and I personally want it, but I can't sign up. I'm jealous of you guys
just
watching.
Just have your kids sign up. Does it say anything about prohibiting kids?
Do you have to be 13 or 18 to enter?
18.
Oh.
For this? Yeah, 18.
In general, for our giveaways.
Yes, 18. U.S. and Canada minus Quebec. So, anyway, Gordon, can I get a drum roll?
Oh, well.
Ready? Here we go.
Right, Elena's going to do
it. And the winner is Marvin Zurcher from Ohio. That's where I was born. Marvin Zurcher.
Congratulations, Marvin.
You are the winner.
Cool.
We will be emailing you at your provided email address.
Everybody.
So we can send this.
Marvin won this awesome 2nd Gen Ryzen Threadripper Heavy Metal Tour T-shirt signed by Lisa Sue and Jim Anderson. This is awesome.
Oh, you know what? And
the cool thing about it is if you look at the tour dates on the back, that's actually the days that they're like going around and showing.
Yeah, so we have Computex, E3, Gamescom, PAX Australia, and then they're showing it again at CES Las Vegas next year.
Wow.
I'm not sure why I said the Las Vegas part. We don't know what it is.
So, yeah, that was fun. Once again, thanks everyone for signing up.
And you'll get the 7-Eleven bag from Taiwan.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that's worth more, right?
That is Gordon's signature addition to this.
Signature edition.
Gordon, you should sign the bag.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'll sign the bag. That'll be it. That's I'm fine with signing the bag, which is
that would be
the
funny.
part that this is so cool because I need something to pick up the dog poop in. And that'd be the proper
with Gordon's name on it.
Yes.
That's probably gonna happen.
That's like a scene from a movie. Close up, bag, name, poop.
What? Which movie?
Any movie. I'm just saying,
He's just framing ideas
for my new
for
Netflix
interest.
movie that I'm working on. I am working on with Netflix. They're turning this into a show. I'm making that up, of course, because but Netflix will make anything. I think at this point, you could pitch them on anything. We really should pitch them.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a show about nothing. Where it's a podcast. We've convinced people to let us work and pretend we're working, and we do nothing but talk about nothing.
Hey, that sounds fun.
Yeah,
All right. So we've got.
Oh wait, last question, right?
We've got like 5 minutes to do some questions. So chime in the YouTube and Twitch and Facebook chat, and at me, which is actually a lot easier, just at PC World, so I can find the questions which we will be asking to you guys right now. In the meantime,
I do have that other one from Ken.
Oh yeah. Let's
Ken,
cover that one.
Ken Bethards. Hey, yeah, see, one shot. Ken Bethards.
Boom,
easy.
Yeah,
say hi, Adam.
Unless it's Beathards.
A little salty.
Greeting nerds. I'd like to know something about the 4K monitor mentioned in the Half Nerd episode. Did it support FreeSync or variable refresh rate over HDMI port? Because if it didn't, there was no benefit to what was claimed they witnessed while playing on the 1X, making Adam and Elena both wrong. Why am I reading this like Batman? The moral is never underestimate the power of suggestion. He sounds like Ken is assuming it was. He is correct that it wasn't working. Yeah. Oh, also when setting up a small battle, I don't understand that. Okay. But yeah, so did it support variable refresh rate over HDMI?
So I just have one thing to say to that. Child, please. I mean, seriously, guys, I'm not going to buy something if it's not going to work as advertised. So
she will return it. She will return it.
So here's the way you know that I actually sprung for FreeSync over HDMI, because there are very few out there. And in general, if you're looking for a 4K FreeSync monitor these days, you can get a really good one, like a really nice one, IPS, nothing extra and fancy, for about $250 on sale. This one cost me $350 on sale. For some reason, it doesn't even have HDR support. It doesn't have anything else. It just has that FreeSync over HDMI feature. So I paid almost $100 more, actually a little more than $100 more, so that I could play with all the devices that can support it in my house.
Nice.
And I'm cheap.
I thought FreeSync didn't cost anything.
I'm cheap.
No.
I would never spend that money.
What's up with that?
I didn't have to.
It's not exactly free there. But so FreeSync has supported HDMI since the beginning, I believe, right? It wasn't
not from the beginning, but it's been a couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not implemented much, because most of the time it's just over DisplayPort.
Yeah. So it must be HDMI 2.0, whatever. D be.
I suspect we'll see more monitors now that Xbox is supporting it. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised to see more FreeSync HDMI monitors.
I hope so, but there's actually a very small amount available in the marketplace right now. This is one of the very few available. I don't know why. I wonder if they're just moving towards FreeSync 2 instead over HDMI.
Yeah, but that's not free.
We should talk about that. We should talk
not.
about this on one of the shows. I have thoughts and things to
It's
say,
not.
but I don't want to
So
derail
they're going to
us
be more
that much.
expensive.
Well, I would think most Xbox gamers play on their televisions anyway.
Right. But there's no FreeSync on TVs yet, as far as I know.
There is actually right
FreeSync
before I
or
went on
FreeSync
vacation.
2.0.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
it's not
it's
the same
backwards
thing,
compatible,
but
right?
FreeSync 2.0 has FreeSync
Built into
in
it.
it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So the FreeSync, I forget if it was 2.0 or normal now, but Samsung TVs, a bunch of Samsung TVs from this year now have FreeSync support. So.
Okay. The reason I ask is because usually if it's 2.0, there's a premium involved with it. It gets a little more
2.0
expensive.
basically has HDR, and HDR you're going to pay a bunch for.
Yeah. That's why. That's why I said it.
Well, on this topic, Fragalot is asking, why would you need FreeSync for basically a TV that only gets 60 FPS at best?
I mean, if you're playing on Xbox One, it's maximum 60 FPS, so...
Still
Yeah.
makes smooth.
And that's maximum. You ain't gonna be doing that all the time, so you need that for the console graphics.
Brad, are there any 4K monitors that are doing 120 or 144 hertz right now?
The G-Sync HDR ones are going to. There's one other one from a Korean brand that came out like a month ago.
Okay.
That's 144 hertz 4K, but in general, 60 is where you're at for
Yeah,
4K.
that's what I thought. You're kind of limited already.
I would actually.
And honestly, variable refresh rate technology like FreeSync and G-Sync work best when you're talking about lower frame rates, because that's when you're going to see the smoothness difference more than anywhere else. So
Yeah.
Does it make a difference? Like if you notice, because I mean, definitely it feels like, I know I was kind of throwing shade, but consoles really 60 frames a second is not. It's never 60, right? It's always below that, so it must help, right? Especially with the synced up.
So we didn't get to do a lot of testing with it because we've been so busy with other projects. So we played a little bit, and that monitor is a little strange, to be honest. Like, it wasn't recognized by the Xbox One as a 4K panel unless I had already turned on FreeSync on the panel. And so I couldn't actually test with it on or off, which is what I wanted to do to get, kind of a, control versus with FreeSync on. So when we were playing Gears of War 4 on there, it looked really smooth. But at the same time, Gears of War 4 is not the same game as it was when Hayden first played it when it came out in the fall, when it was a lot choppier. They've been patching it. So I don't know how much of that the smoothness is attributed to the patching versus the actual FreeSync. But overall, it did look really smooth. I didn't see any screen tearing, not really much jaggies or anything like that.
So plus.
All right, more questions. We got a question from the chat. Here we go. Ho Wang on YouTube's asking, how old are you, Gordon?
Oh, personal.
You can't ask. I would answer that, but it would be a violation of our HR policy here. I think we're not allowed to even talk about those kind of things. Well, I will say I did enjoy the music. And actually, I really am bummed. I missed Sir Mix-a-Lot. He played the county fair. And I was like, I really. So if you can understand that reference, you'll understand,
Okay.
I don't think Elena does.
Yeah. She doesn't know who that is.
Well, no, I'm wondering when he ever actually played a county fair.
Well, actually, that is actually the very sad thing is when I said, oh my God, Sir Mix-a-Lot is playing the county fair. That's just like, it's just like, really? You would because you would think, Sir Mix would be set for life. But I think a lot of, performers do like to tour. They just like to tour.
At county fairs.
I mean, that's if you can get what you can get,
Yeah, I guess a gig is a gig, right?
Yeah,
it's a gig economy.
Makes me a little sad.
But yes, if you
Elvis
recognize
says, do the
who that is, yeah. From Berkeley, by the way.
Oh, there we go. Over on Twitch, Enigmatastic says, is anyone expecting Noctua to release a D16 with their new A series fans? Got a fan question there. Anyone know?
That'd be sweet. I haven't talked to him about it. Those are... I'm not as into fans as I am other parts. Those are I believe, the new fans with they released all the charts with the wind resistance and stuff to show how much quieter it is and stuff.
Is that the one that has like a dark model or something like that?
No, they just released a bunch of different dark models, but I hope so. That'd be cool. I
am just impressed.
Though.
I'm just impressed by how far, you know, it's like hardware vendors. They always pick like one thing that everybody focuses on, like the innovation with fans for PCs are just, it's insane, right? Some of it's just marketing, but like the fans I saw at Computex are like, wow. They're like, you know, triple blade kind of things, and they've really put just so much science has gone into these things. It's nuts.
No, like when Noctua announced these, I'm hoping I'm talking about the right fans. Because again, I don't know fan numbers off the top of my head as well as I do other parts. They legit like put out like a long like white paper style thing full of charts and airflow from like the chief marketing or technical officer or something explaining all this stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a good one from Halistine Jenkins on YouTube. Any word on whether Coffee Lake Refresh will work on Z370?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. I was reading another question. Sorry. Wait, what's the story?
Any word on whether Coffee Lake Refresh will work on Z370?
Gosh, I don't know. You know, I would hope. I wouldn't bet on it. Just because it's always 50-50 with Intel. You would hope that, you know, so what you're referring to is a rumored 8-core Coffee Lake part that's supposed to come out, and you would hope it would work on existing Coffee Lake boards. I would not put any money on that, because with Intel, they really just, they have no problem saying, here's a brand new chipset for a brand new CPU. And yeah, it probably will work with 8700K, but I wouldn't necessarily bet that you could take whatever this chip is. There's rumors it's a Core i9 9900K or whatever it is.
Yep.
I wouldn't bet on it. There's just as much chance as it not working as it working, because Intel generally has in the past, of course, the internet likes to think, we screw you. They intentionally screw us. Actually, I'm going to take a couple minutes. I had a conversation with an Intel person at Computex. I don't believe this is on background or, off the record. But I was like, look, the internet thinks you intentionally screw people because you come out with Z370 that was incompatible with Kaby Lake. What's up with that? And I was like, I've long believed that it's because they're so conservative. They want to make sure everything works. And he was like, look, I know everybody thinks that we do this intentionally to make everybody angry, but we don't. We actually try to make everything work, but there was really a different pinout for 8700K than there was for 7700K. So there was a change. It may have been fine, 95% of the time, but it's that 5% they're worried about. So they did tell me they honestly do not try to piss us all off intentionally.
I mean,
who believes that? I don't know, but
it's true. You don't have to be intentional to upset somebody.
Well, but you could sort of like, I understand people have a right to be angry too, because
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying you don't have to be intentional to make someone angry.
I know. But yeah, I don't know. I really got to say it's a 50-50 chance that it will not work in your Z370 board. Yeah.
I would hope though that they would have built Z370, because the whole thing with Z370, the reason they changed it was because of the new pinouts and because of the new power requirements. Right. So I would hope that they would have had the forethought to plan for this 8-core chip when they were building out Z370.
Yes.
But like Gordon, I wouldn't put money on it.
Yeah, because you don't know. I mean, it could have been under pressure from Ryzen at the time. And I will say, I'm going to go back to ancient history. Intel had a 925X chipset for the very, very high-end Pentium 4, 800 megahertz frontside bus. And then they came out with a Pentium 4 with a 1066 frontside bus. Did not work with the previous chipset, so they came out with the 925XE chipset and motherboards that worked with one CPU. So it does happen.
It's happened.
And AMD as well. The original FX51 was, like a one-shot deal, right? FX51, FX53, that was it.
Speaking of Intel, Israel on YouTube is asking, will Jim Keller and Raja Koduri bring new life to Intel?
I think that was a big shakeup. That is a big shakeup for Intel's culture to bring in people that work for the competition. And Raja and Jim Keller, I was surprised. They are like up there. If you look at the list of executives, they are on the executive committee for Intel. So it's not like they hired them and stuck them in some room somewhere. They're up there. So they have real influence over Intel, and I imagine there will actually be a change. You're not going to see it immediately, but I think there will be an impact from it.
Cool. Yeah, you don't bring in people like that to not have them have an impact.
You would hope.
Unless you want to take them off the market.
That only works in states that allow anti-compete clauses, though, right? Because or contracts, right? Because then that's a strategic move, and you've taken the chess pieces off the board. But California, you can't limit workers like that; they can leave at any time.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you put them in a back room and say, we're not going to give you any projects, they can just say, sorry, I don't want to be here, and they can just go somewhere else.
Yeah, they could, but you're in a room and you have a comfortable life, and you don't know. Then you realize it's all faked. Everything you're working on doesn't even plug into anything. You're like, how come I can't access internet mail for everybody else? Oh, we don't know. It's you can imagine. Wouldn't that be just like cool?
Cool or cruel?
Well, like in a movie kind of way, where you get brought in. They hire you just to take your brains off the market from helping competitors, and you think you're doing something, but you're in a completely fake part of the company that does nothing, like a shell company that doesn't do anything. And in the end, they just kill everything. I swear to God, that's already happened before. Great movie. Hey, Netflix.
Yeah,
we expect that.
There we go. Idea. All right. Couple questions. T1 Murick on Twitch is asking if ASRock launched RX 580 right now, doesn't it mean that AMD cards won't update in this year to the 600 lineup?
I would be shocked if they did. Yeah. I said that when they rebranded the 500 series to the 500X series too a couple months ago. It doesn't look like there's going to be new Radeon cards this year.
Yeah, isn't the rumor next year, early next year?
I think that's the public roadmap. It's not even a rumor, right? They're saying...
Yeah, they said 7 nanometer Vega for workstation for this year. So,
But, I got to say that does not preclude a 600 series card from AMD based on Polaris. It could happen, right? There's nothing to stop that. There's
nothing, but...
It's the exact same as the RX 580 and 580X, but now it has the latest version of Adrenaline.
Brad, partners asked for it.
The naming stuff, it's just like, come on, have some decency, y'all.
And, everybody does it. Yeah.
I get it. Human psychology and all, but it's just very unfortunate.
GTX 940? DDR version? Anyone? So...
and the last question is a serious one.
I have one more.
Oh, well, why don't you do yours and we'll finish on.
Okay, this is, and I want to get to it because it was emailed to us.
Email.
So I don't want to leave these people out. It's from Scott Salisker. Long time listener, first time quiz. You've taught me a lot about PCs, but World of Warships reference, yay.
Oh, God.
Real game. I have a question for the show. Or would go insane if you ever did a build on this. Can I and should I build my own NAS? I know Elena wants to answer this. I'm itching to build my first PC, and recent GPU price spike meant I was stuck buying a brand name desktop when I needed a new machine this spring.
Smart move.
My pie in the sky NAS would have a small form factor like the pink one you recently built to fit into an IKEA Kallax wall unit. Set and forget backup and media storage capabilities for both Mac and PC. And in the living room, he's thinking maybe 2 drives, maybe 4 if he needs to. In the living room, maybe could also possibly work as an HTPC, box.
Or gaming, I think he said.
Or gaming, and not on a tight budget. Just want to get working with some cool parts and build a PC that could be fun to tinker with, but also useful. Linux A+.
I mean, I don't think that's a problem at all.
Yeah.
If you're building your own system.
Oh, and sorry, the last thing is, would you build or just buy a Synology or an RPI? Any opinions?
I'll take a first stab at it, but I think we all should chime in just so that, there's a wealth of opinions there. So I actually looked up that IKEA wall unit just to get a sense of how much space there is in a single cubby. And I think it worked out to roughly 13 by 15 by 13. So that's actually not a lot of space if you're living in a warmer climate and, ventilation is a priority for you. So if you live somewhere that just gets ungodly hot and you're worried about the lifespan of your system, it may be better to just get a pre-built NAS system, which tend to be very compact and you can, actually get decent ventilation around it. Outside of that, I do think there's something to be said for building your own system because you can customize it any way that you want. We were talking after work yesterday, and you were saying that you've had 4 different NAS units die on you.
Yeah.
And there's one downside to a NAS dying on you, which is they're usually the operating systems of those are usually based on Linux, but they're some kind of proprietary fork or, variant.
Yeah, good luck.
Getting the data off of off the disks from a dead NAS unit can be just a little bit extra work. I've had people do it. Friends of mine have, retrieved data. But if you're running instead, say, a normal system, like a regular PC, then data recovery should be a lot easier in that scenario.
Yeah, I agree with you because I swear to God, they're still in my closet because I have not taken the weeks to figure out how to unspool data from a RAID 5 proprietary Linux ARM-based OS. So no, I do think it's Synology is a great name. I've heard nothing but great things about them. I think it's a good idea, but I do like the idea of building your own and rolling a Linux. There's plenty of Linux NAS-based OSs builds out there, and if you use off-the-shelf parts, something blows up, it's easy to get those off-the-shelf parts, right? So that's a big plus. Yeah. The problem with all of the 3 of them were Linux. One was a Windows Home Server that was going out. And, you just can't get the parts for those things. The fans go out for them, and it's hard. Yeah. They're not made to be serviceable. Yeah. Even though they do get left on 24/7, they're not really using the parts that are meant to sit in somebody's, desk, under a desk 24/7.
I will say,
80-degree temperature.
I'm going to jump in real quick about that. So if you build your own system, you can also put in as much cooling as you want.
Yes.
And how noisy, you can influence that as well. I have a NAS unit that I got, and the fan itself is a standard size, but it's inserted in such a way that I think I would actually have to take apart the whole freaking thing to actually replace it, and that thing is shrill. It drives me crazy. So I don't know if I'll actually use that one. This one was given to me, and I was going to set it up for my parents. Now I'm rethinking that because it's so loud. My mom would just ask me, like, what is that?
But as you get older, your hearing kind of goes at that high-end frequency. I can tell you from listening to your kids be shrill. So like eventually you just learn to ignore everything. Huh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it reverses. It goes from them ignoring you to Brad knows. So when you get older, you'll just ignore them. Huh? Slow down. I was talking to my mother-in-law. Slow down. This is going down the street. Huh? Yeah. She's like, does it bother you? Well, yes. That's why I'm saying slow down.
I just want to chime in real quick and say at the end, he says he wants to get Tinkering in a Box. So if that's one of the goals that you want to go in there and build a PC, I would recommend building your own version. I would recommend that over getting a NAS, whatever. The thing is that little pink box, the Silverstone Sugo SG13, I have one right behind, and that thing only has space for, I think, 2 or 3 drives.
Yeah, well, 2.5s, and I think you could mount. Yeah. You could mount one 3.5, which is where you get the big capacity. So
so it has very limited storage options. So something that's small in a PC case, that's not optimized to cram in as much data as possible like a NAS box is. So if you really need a lot of disks, then it makes sense to buy a dedicated NAS box, I think, as opposed to building your own.
Sounds like you
if you're looking for the small form factor.
He said maybe 2 or 4, but the one thing you could do is. Silverstone does actually make a lot of sort of cases. Go check out the Silverstone website. They actually have a bunch of cases that are designed to be, roll your own NAS unit. And they actually have, multiple drive bays, hot swap drive bays, all kinds of cool stuff. They're pricier, but, it's probably a better purpose.
But they just might be a little too big for where he might not he might have to sacrifice on like one of these, criteria.
He might not be able to use the Calyx, but he might be able to use the Blurg. Right? Because everything in IKEA's got the Blurg. There's a U and an umlaut somewhere, right? I don't know why there's no umlaut on here. There should be an umlaut over the KA something.
The A, probably A.
Blurg. Oh, wait. Okay, last question from Adam.
Last question, serious one from CyberClue. Is there any new updates on NVIDIA's new NDA scheme to muzzle tech journalists, or are you guys already muzzled?
We're not allowed to, if we did sign NDAs, about anything, not necessarily this case, one of the terms is you're not allowed to talk about it. So if we did sign it, we couldn't tell you anyway. In general, we're PC World. We're owned by a company called IDG. It's a big, huge corporate company. We wouldn't sign anything that we weren't comfortable with having our lawyers, who are our actual full-time corporate lawyers, look over stuff and make sure that it's in everybody's interests and we're not screwed in any way.
And everything would be covered under attorney-client privilege, so we couldn't talk about it anyway. Although there's this great scene from Apocalypse Now. Willard goes in and they say, you're an assassin, 5th Special Forces, and then they said, did you not execute this, tax collector, Quantry Providence? And Willard says, I'm unaware of any such operation, nor would I be able to talk about it if such operation did in fact exist. I thought that was a great scene from Apocalypse Now. I'm talking about Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. But in general, I've seen that printed on the web, and I think the furor is kind of out of proportion, to be honest. Some of the interpretations I've seen of that letter that I've seen on the web seem to have been done by people who weren't lawyers and don't understand the lawyer speaking some of it. So that's where I'm going to leave it with that. I can't tell you whether or not we signed it. I wouldn't tell you whether or not we signed it, even if we didn't, because just in general, we don't talk about what NDAs we sign, don't sign, because then you can get information from that too.
There's also a great video that Steve at Gamers Nexus did on this whole thing, right?
Oh yeah,
that's worth a browse. He talks to an attorney about it. So
he interviews a lawyer. Yep,
interviews a lawyer about it. So if you're interested in that topic, you should definitely watch that video. So
cool. With that, let's wrap it up.
Are we going to get out of here because the air conditioning?
That was a depressing last question, man. Like, I can't talk about this even if I did or didn't sign anything.
Had to bring it up.
Apocalypse Now was a great movie. It's like one of the greatest movies ever made.
Nice.
Check back next week for your fix of PC Talk and the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, there will be fewer charts. Subscribe to us on iTunes.
Thank God.
Please also leave a review on iTunes, and I will make fewer charts that you can't see. Also, you can listen to us on Google Play or Stitcher. Send questions and comments. Yes, we did just read them. At the Full Nerd at PCWorld.com. Thanks for coming. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis.
Adios.
Elaine Yee.
Bye, everyone.
And Adam Patrick Murray will hit the kill switch.
Congrats to Marvin for an awesome shirt. We'll contact you later. Everyone else, have a good one.